Welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network, and today's topic is memory. We really tend to allow memory and our memory of events from the past to shape our beliefs, our behavior, and our experience. And what if those memories are flawed, or our interpretations of events was skewed? What if we can actually change the past by reimagining those memories? So I think this will be a really interesting conversation this morning, talking about memory and its fallibility and its mutability. Good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning, and welcome to everybody else who's joining us. I think this will be a really stimulating conversation. Good morning, Robin. Welcome. So good to have you here. So before we get started talking about memory today, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, all your molecules, your electrons, and creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining stress, tension, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel all those sensations, the pressure, the temperature, the friction, the tickling and tingling, and allow all of that sensation to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So we're talking about memory. And this is such a fascinating topic because I was watching a TV show, and one of the episodes was talking about recalled trauma. And it's not actually, and I don't know if it's true or not, but they were saying that it wasn't admissible in court as a legitimate memory, something that is a retrieved memory, because memories are fallible. And just this week, I had a very, very, very intense session with a client where they had this image of some traumatic events that occurred, and then the trauma shifted, but it was a traumatic event, and they were in a quandary as to whether this was real, if it really happened or if it didn't. And the thing is, the way that memory works is that every time we revisit something, we're actually reconstructing it, right? And it presents itself as real. But I think, I know I've shared with you some situations and memories that have been disputed in the context of my family. Like I grew up knowing, and I don't know where it came from, I grew up knowing that at some point I drank turpentine as a kid and had to be rushed to the hospital to get my stomach pumped. And as an adult, with my aging parents years later, when I asked about that event, they had no recollection of it at all. And So given that they had no recollection of it, I had no way. I mean, maybe I could have gone into hospital records and done a deep dive to see if I could find that information anywhere. But I had no way to verify whether it was true or not true. And another situation about memory that's really vivid is my brother, as a kid, my aunt went out west, and she recounted a story of a bear that she saw when she was there. And my brother, who did not go, who was a young child at the time, had a vivid recollection of being chased by a bear up a tree. I believe, now I don't even remember the story vividly, but he would stake his life on the fact that he was there. And so the truth is that our minds don't distinguish between something that actually occurred and something that is vividly imagined, which is one of the reasons why visualization can be such a powerful tool, because we can create realities for ourselves through those visualizations. It's a fascinating thing. So Rosalind says, if my memory filters out what is important or not important, what is real then? Is the practice to see things as they are, to get in front of the mind before our experience and relational info distorts the information. Well, I don't know that it's possible for us to have undistorted access, or to have access to undistorted information, or to experience information that's undistorted. Why? Because all information, all of our experience is filtered through our senses, through our ability to receive that information. And our ability to receive that information is very specific to us as individuals. There may be some commonality, but we each have the spectrum of capacity of our own senses. So the things that I hear, the things that I see, the things that I put my attention to, the specific cognitive processes that I have, all these things color the experience that I have, and my interpretation and integration of past experience impacts the interpretation and awareness of present experience. So Robin, I love this. Robin says the color sky blue that I see will be a different blue you associate sky blue with. We might both agree that whatever this is sky blue. And it may be consistent in our own experience, but it doesn't mean that you and I are having the same experience, which is a fascinating thing. And it's actually something, there was a point where I was in college where I took a philosophy course, and I realized that the words that I said and the meaning that I attributed to the words that I said were not necessarily the same as the meanings that you might associate with those words. And I got to a point where I just couldn't talk. I'd start talking, and then it was just like, and I didn't talk. I don't know how long it lasted. I tend to think it was a period of months, until I took another course that was a theosophy course that let me understand that so much of communication has nothing to do with words. Like the greater part of our communication is not through words as much as it is through gesture, through through facial expression, through tonality, and energy, right? At that time, we weren't talking about energy, but that's really the case, is the energy with which something is expressed, the undertone, the feeling tone is as much a portion of that communication as the words are. Because we've all experienced people saying, "Oh, you're so wonderful," when the subtext is, "I hate your guts." Like we've all experienced the disparity between the words and the actual communication. It can be very, very confusing. So when we talk about memory, we get to talk about perception. We get to talk about interpretation. So Rubin says, for some, actions speak louder than words. Well, and there's a lot to be said for that, because often actions are incongruent with the words that are being spoken. So, another a situation where that occurs a lot is a situation where someone says, "I love you," and then they do things that don't feel loving at all. Now, the thing there is that they may love you, and the way that they express love is maybe different from the way that you receive love, or the way that you experience love or being loved. So it's a slippery slope. It's an interesting conversation, I think, when we look at how much stake we put in memory. And we'll fight over events, like you did this and you did that. And I have a client who had some experiences as a kid where they were terrified by their father. And the thing is that their father was big and they were little, and their father was loud and they were sensitive. And these incidents registered in a very, very impactful, profound way that shaped not only their memory. I mean, it grew into this sort of demonic monster force over time, but it shaped their experience and created a tremendous sense of fear and anxiety for them in life that they carried through most of their lives. Good morning, good evening to you, Gia. Welcome, welcome, and so good to have you here with us. We're talking about memory and the fallacy of memory. And when we recognize the fallacy of memory, as vividly true as it may feel, when we recognize that, then we can also give ourselves license to change it. And so one of the things that I learned when I studied NLP is something called timeline therapy, where we can actually go back in time. And they're all different degrees of how you can work with that. But we can go back in time and we can recreate circumstances. And how we recreate circumstances is often by just gaining a different perspective, literally a different vantage point on the experience itself. So an experience that was experienced by a 5-year-old, when observed by a 50-year-old, has a whole different tenor. There's a whole different perspective, a whole different awareness that can be brought to that experience and to the interpretation of that experience, so that the tenor, the feeling aspect of that experience is changed. And what happens when that happens is something akin to magic often, when a frightened child can be soothed by the perspective of the adult going back and being there for that child, sharing this new perspective, providing comfort to that child in that circumstance. And what happens is that the relief of that child in that imaginal space of going back in time and communicating a new perspective bubbles up into the present, and it shifts the foundation of the experience. It's pretty darn close to magic. So Rosalind says, how about connection to sage self or higher self? The notion that we get disconnected when separated from the womb. If I can tap back into all knowing, then I'm remembering what I forgot, back to original innocence. Well, I love this, Rosalind, and actually, there are a number of practices. I took a course long ago called the Silva Mind Control Method, and now I think it's called the Silva Method or the Silva Healing Method. And one of the things that we did was connect to our sage self. You as easily as you, and this is an interesting thought, we can remember our future. If we take the word remember and talk about constructing, right? Membering, bringing these members together, we can create for ourselves a future. We can go into the future self, the self that is realized, or go into the sage self or the higher self, and communicate with that other level, dimension, experience, awareness of consciousness, and be instructed by that other perspective, right? Just the same as if we went into the past and brought a different perspective to the past, we can bring a different perspective to the future. We can find or our interdimensional selves, if you want to entertain that possibility. That Lillian, oh my, it's been forever. Welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning. We're talking about memory, and really we're talking about consciousness. So where was I going with this? Oh, interdimensional self. So if you subscribe to the notion from quantum physics that everything that has ever happened or could possibly happen that already exists, then you could, there's a guy, I forget what his name is, but he calls it quantum jumping or quantum leaping, where you can go from one sense of yourself to another dimensional part of yourself that has the answers to all those issues that you're concerning yourself with. So potentially you could tune into an awareness that is in another dimensional self of yours that already knows how to deal with all the issues that you're dealing with, or that has it all resolved, or that isn't prey to the trials and tribulations that you suffer from, right? So that maybe that part can heal you, just like we would take our adult self back to the child to offer solace and comfort to that child. We can find those kinds of inputs from these other dimensions of self. Kind of trippy, right? And unbounded, unlimited, giving us access to a whole other dimension of potential. And so Lillian says, yes, 2 long times. Suppose I got here for a reason. I hope so, Lillian. I hope today's conversation resonates for you. And Rosalind says, that's magic, healing past into the present and bringing knowing of future into present. 100%, it's magic. And we are, when we allow ourselves the recognition of it, we are magical beings. We are consciousness incarnate. And as consciousness incarnate, there's all kinds of magic we can create. And we haven't even begun to tap it yet. But as we travel through these different dimensions of experience, we can grab nuggets. We tend to think reality is a thing, like reality is a static thing and it has certain rules to it. And the thing is that in our conscious explorations, we really have an unbounded potential for awareness, for expansion, for experience, for magic. So Lillian says, yes, I also feel a lot goes back to my childhood. Well, you know what, Lillian, that's so much the case for most of us, where we have traumas of our childhood and then we spend the rest of our lives trying to heal them, right? It's kind of like that's the pattern. And, maybe there are tools available to us in these other dimensions of time and space that can help us heal those wounds more effectively. They're tools that we didn't even know we had. So Lillian says, I struggle a lot with things and experiences from when I was a child and with my family. Well, I don't know that it's any consolation at all, but I promise you, you are not alone as far as struggling with your history. And, I'm playing with the notion that our first part of life is experience, and it's not so for everybody, but that the first part of life is deep, deep trauma, and the rest of our lives is learning how to resolve it and to heal from it. I think I that's been my path, and it's been the path for a lot of people I know. And I have to say that, like, from 50 on, it's like that and it's not so for everybody, obviously, but there's a lot of healing that takes place that opens up new arenas for peace, for fulfillment, for wholeness. At least it was 50 for me, that I gave myself permission to just be. I figured half a century, okay, now I've got permission, I gave myself permission, and I've done tremendous growth since then. So, as a kid, I never would have imagined that I'd be at this stage of life and still hammering things out, still struggling with certain things and still growing and having revelations. I would have, as a kid, I thought I'd have it all handled somehow. I thought all the struggles would be done. And they certainly have a lot more grace now. But yeah, it's a lifelong thing, I think. And if you stop growing, you start dying. At least that's how it is for me. And so I intend to be growing and learning until my very last breath, and maybe beyond. So Lillian says, I had to be an adult from when I was 4. So it feels so hard today. So Lillian, maybe now you get to be more of a child. I think that that's something that I've gifted myself, is to be more, finding more playfulness, to be able to be more childlike, to be able to be more joyful. Then I was a very serious child as well. So giving ourselves permission to be ourselves is a big, big, big deal. And it takes, some of us are blessed, and some of us are blessed to have that experience at an older age. So Rosalind says, Mira, can you touch on the modality that heals the younger version of yourself, like techniques of imaging, sitting next to your child self and saying things to that little girl, things that she wishes she had heard or needs to hear? Sure, Rosalind, thank you for asking that. And Lillian, I think this will be helpful for you too. Lillian says, I've always felt guilty since small, and I've not done anything to feel guilty about. So really strange feeling, and still struggling with that. So here's the thing, as an adult, we have a different perspective. And while we may not have a great relationship with ourselves yet, or our younger selves, what we often have is a greater compassion for children and for other people. And so when we have a memory of ourselves as children in a traumatic circumstance, as an adult, we can be witness to that. And what I go through with a lot of folks is that the child is so wounded in that situation, as the present day person is witnessing the child in that traumatic situation, the child is so traumatized that the child can't even recognize or acknowledge the presence of the adult there. And so sometimes the adult just needs to be there, present and loving, until the child, it has a willingness, and this is all in imaginal space, until the child has a willingness to receive the attention of the adult. And then the adult can ask the child for permission to sit there with them, or to hold their hand, or to give them a hug, or to have a conversation. It's important to be respectful of that young child in talking with them, to ask for permission, because this child is already feeling violated, most likely. And what you want to do is to provide a safe space for that child and cultivate a relationship. And it might take gently doing it. It may be that that child just doesn't trust you, and you need to generate and cultivate that trust over time. So, and then ultimately, if you will have the willingness as the adult to commit to cultivating that relationship with the child, and you do that, that in itself can be healing, to be able to grace that child with the love, with the safety, with the security that they so deeply needed. And so Lillian says, I've always felt, oh, we read that one. Gia says to Rosalind, thank you for asking that question. I too needed the answer. I hope I provided that for you. Lillian says, I was not a serious child, always smiling, and was called a beautiful angel, but sad inside, and today also sad inside. I feel I'm guilty all the time, and I just always was good. Well, maybe you can go, Lillian, to your future self that can soothe your guilt, the future self who can help to heal your present self, who can help to heal the child self of that sadness and that guilt. And do you know what you feel guilty about? That's something to be looking at. Lillian says, only my grandmother made me feel enough and happy. So not feeling enough. So maybe you can allow yourself to presence yourself to your grandmother, whether she's here in the physical or not. Maybe you can allow yourself, instead of your future self, why not your grandmother, and allow yourself to visit with her and talk to her. So, Lillian, you feel guilty to be born, sweetheart. It's a gift that you were born. It's a miracle that you were born. The likelihood that any of us would be born is a miracle. And I don't imagine that my saying that alleviates that guilt, but it's a miracle to be here, as painful as it can be. You know, this is a phenomenal experience. If we are spirit having a physical experience, look at what we get to experience. We get to experience all the emotions: love, hate, joy, grief, sorrow, exuberance, terror. We get to feel all these sensations. We get to see all these things. We get to be immersed in this very rich sensory experience. And so Lillian says, my mom always said I should never have been born. It hurts. So Lillian, clearly your mom was wrong because you were born. So if we allow that life is unfolding in its perfection, it is perfect that you were born. And your mom sounds like she was a damaged person, and she damaged you. And so you get to not believe the words of someone who sounds like she was already badly damaged. And spend time with your grandmother and allow her to help you recognize that you are here for a reason. We each are. We're each here part of the evolution of the universe. We're all part of it. We're all part of it. It doesn't happen without us. So on that note, on this Friday, I'm going to sign off. So Lily, just because your grandmom has gone to heaven doesn't mean you can't reach her. She's there, and you can speak with her at any moment. And Rosalind says, so profound. Thank you for sharing. Yes, very profound. All of this. We get to heal ourselves and each other. And we are the evolution of this universe collectively, bringing it into its next expression. So welcome, Marietta. So wonderful to have you here. So everybody, I'm signing off. It's Friday. And I just want to say thank you for the richness of and the profundity of this conversation, and for joining me in these musings on our mornings. And I'm just going to sign off. I love you, and I appreciate all your gratitude that you're expressing. Thank you so much. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to check out the other magnificent programming on Enlightened World Network and Enlightened World Living. And I wish you a glorious weekend. And I hope to see you again here really, really soon. So much love to you.